What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today, something you've all, I'm sure, been waiting for because you've been telling me, Listener Encounters Volume 13. Yay! Our first encounter comes from our friend Tairai, and she says, "Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience, and I hope a week of focus will help you play catch up." She goes on to speak to me for a little bit, and then we get into possible gin. Tairai, I just want to say thank you for your kind words that preceded this story. I really appreciate you. Even when I don't get back to you, you still send kindness and love, and I just absolutely appreciate you and everyone else who does the same. Okay. I was deployed to Qatar in 2019 to 2020. This base had many amenities, several gyms, fast food, a full-size movie theater, and a few chow halls. Living our living area, we could walk everywhere, and we did. I was deployed with someone I knew only in passing due to my civilian job, and we ended up becoming good friends through the deployment. The incident happened around June 2020 after they had reopened the theater for movies. Many of the movies they played were something I'm not allowed to mention, movies. We were walking from the theater to where our dormitories were and had to pass these dormitories for lower ranks of the military. Picture a two-story warehouse-type building that is about the length of a football field. Now, lighting in these areas were hit or miss at night. There were areas you could walk that were illuminated, while there was little to none on the outside areas. We tended to take a shortcut, favoring a specific side that would bring us to where we were housed. This took us into the more darkened areas. We walked out past one of these warehouse-type buildings, and a shadow caught my eye. It looked like a great cat, but this was not one I was familiar with. Its head was facing the corner of the building, and it was on the south side of the building. I saw a great frame, 4 legs, and a shorter tail. It was 6 foot tall, standing on all fours, and it seemed to be waiting for something. We would have normally passed through those 2 buildings. When I saw it, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck right and a slight tingle down my spine. I said nothing to my friend as I'm used to this kind of stuff and not sure if she would have even seen it. I also immediately do a rationality check. Was there something the shadow is attached to? I can't see anything. In fact, there was a man that walked past it who didn't appear caught in its shadow. I got an eerie feeling about it and certainly didn't want to draw whatever it was attention. As we were walking, my friend noticed this and goes, "What the hell is that?" I respond, "Don't pay attention to it, just keep walking." I found myself explaining to her that the less attention you give it, the less of a chance it has of noticing and even attaching itself to her. I certainly was not interested in having to deal with anything like that ever again in my life. I told her then I would talk to her more about it once we got back to our dorms. Once we got back, I had to explain to her I see things pretty regularly. It's more of, well, this is my life. A lot of the times it's just shadow people. They go about their own lives. I go about mine. Sometimes there are people that aren't even here in the moment, but I've learned to live with it. I mean, you tell people you see things and they might just put you away. My friend understood and even had a few of her own encounters. Stay safe, have fun, and blessings to you and yours. Tairai, right back at you. I feel you, girl. Shadow people, I always say, could be a part of my extended family. They're around so much, and I absolutely 100% agree. I've only learned this recently, but if you just ignore them, like, they do kind of just ignore you. There are lurkers. I've done several videos on them, guys, and I have a lot more information. Actually, not the next book coming out, the collaboration Ghost Stories with Steve. The one after that, it's actually going to be about shadow people, so stay tuned for that. But I do definitely agree. You got to just ignore it, because if it knows that you see it or that you're focused on it, depending on its intention, it could attach itself to you, and then you have a major problem. The next encounter is also from Tairai, very short wolf story. This experience happened in the mid to late 90s. It was a night my dad had brought home the complete Les Miserables opera, I think I said that right, checked out at a big library in Exton, Pennsylvania. It was a 2 to 230 CD collection, and I loved it. I listened to it 2 times that night and realized that everyone else went to bed at some point. In my excitement with listening to these CDs, I couldn't sleep. Now, at this time, I was a minor, and my curfew was 10 p.m. No matter what I did, I couldn't sleep. What made it worse was that it was a school night, and it was 2 a.m. I couldn't take it anymore and grabbed my house key and stepped out. Now, when I stepped out of my house, there was a fog that was somewhat thick. I kept to the shadows as to not get caught by the police, but made my way to what is now the old high school. I walked between the 2 developments and dashed across the street. I then hung to the back sides of the houses in that area. When I got to the far edge of a cul-de-sac of the housing development, I saw movement. This particular area had a direct path to the high school. I hid in the shadows and saw what looked like wolves. They seemed pretty solid, though. I don't think they made much noise beyond maybe their paws hitting the ground. I crept closer, ducking near behind a car, and watched as the large pack passed. Once they passed, I stepped out and watched them run. I cautiously followed until they disappeared into the mists across a soccer field, not too far from the entrance to the old high school property. I stood there in awe, taking in what I had just seen. I finally felt the tiredness hit me and headed back home to sleep. This pack seemed to have between 6 to 8 wolves, and the week or so I checked the news about anything about a pack of wolves in the area and had no luck. Thanks for your time, Tairai. That's a pretty interesting story. It is a little creepy, and what makes it scary is that, number one, are wolves really known to be in that part of Pennsylvania? I'm not really too sure. But I know that there's so many things that wolves symbolize, right? I have the computer open in front of me with the emails in front of it. Like, that's just how I do it. I just read it solid, guys. So I can't really get into why this is like kind of extra creepy. Our next encounters come from our friend Javier M, and he says, "Hello, Gemma. I'll make this a 2-for-1. I'm going to include 2 stories in this email, so enjoy." Javier, thank you so much. As I indicated in my previous email, my family and I love spending time at the slot canyons. It was back in early February of 2019 when the following encounter happened. During some exploring of the canyons, we found an opening at the bottom of a canyon wall. The opening wasn't too big, but it was big enough to crawl inside. We looked inside and it looked pretty deep. So, curiosity getting the best of us, we decided to crawl in and find out how deep it was. We crawled in about 6 to 8 feet when, to our surprise, it was actually the entrance to a cave. Now, before I continue, it's important for me to mention that we were the only people who were around that day. We stayed there all day, and not a single soul came by. This cave is also located in a very secluded part of the canyon, making it very hard to find. It is also surrounded by very steep canyon walls, slightly hidden from view, and is located at a dead end. What led to us finding it? Pure chance and pure luck. That's a story in and of itself. But continuing. Since we found this cave by chance, we were not prepared with flashlights. My oldest nephew, who's 22, had a headlamp in his backpack, so he led the way. Everyone else used our iPhones to light the way. This place looked so ancient and so untouched by people. The only indication of any human knowledge of this cave were 2 glass candles we found, and I think someone used them for some type of ritual. There was candle wax melted on the outside of one with the Virgin Mary image. The other had no candle wax left in it. It only had a white rose inside. Other than that, there was no other sign of any human activity in that cave. We went in about 30 to 40 yards deep inside this cave. Myself and my other nephew's niece and her boyfriend stayed behind. We were just amazed looking around this place. The path is narrow and the cave literally looks like it is split all the way to the ceiling of the canyon. It widens in some areas at the top, giving the appearance that there might be chambers scattered throughout the cave. It's a very impressive sight. Meanwhile, my nephew had walked ahead and climbed over a 3 to 4 foot rise inside the cave. As he continued, the cave bent slightly to the left, and this is where he saw it. He said he was trying to get our attention, but we didn't hear him calling out. He had to walk backwards towards us in order for us to hear him. He said, quote, "Uncle, I think there is someone or something in here." His voice sounded scared and uneasy, and since he said, quote, "someone or something," I asked him what he saw. He came back and said, quote, I don't know. Then he quickly said, "Uncle, let's get out of here now." I'm not gonna lie, he sounded so frightened that my hair turned to wire, so I told everyone, okay, that's enough exploring, let's go. We hurried the hell out of that cave, and remember how I mentioned that no one else was in our area all day? Well, I knew that whatever he saw was not a person, and the fear in his voice only confirmed it. After exiting the cave, I had to calm my nephew down. He was so worked up. He looked panic-stricken. He was pale as a ghost, was nauseated, and he even threw up. It seemed like he was going to pass out. I told him to relax and that we were fine, that nothing was going to hurt us. He said, quote, "I don't know what the F I just saw in there, and I'm never going back in," end quote. It took him some time to regain his composure. As soon as he was calm enough to talk, this is what my nephew said he saw. He said that after he navigated the bend in the cave and looked further down, there was a creature in a crouched position looking in his direction. As his light hit it, the creature stood and ran further into the cave. My nephew said it ran off on 2 legs. It was a bipedal creature. The cave turned to the right at this point, so the creature vanished quickly into the cave. My nephew said at first he thought it was a person that was wearing a mask or a red bandana on their face. Because he said that whatever this thing was, the lower part of its face was all red. He also said he knew he wasn't imagining things because he'd heard footsteps as it ran deeper into the darkness. Now, just to give you an idea of how dark it is in there, we turned off our lights inside the cave on a different occasion that we went. The darkness so thick and black, you literally feel like you're suffocating. It feels like you can lose your mind in that kind of hopeless blackness. It doesn't seem normal or right. It almost feels like it's alive itself, like it's its own entity of eternal evil blackness ready to trap your soul. It's creepy and scary. So now that you have an idea of how dark it is in there, I asked him, just to make sure it wasn't a person, did you see it using a flashlight or any type of light? My nephew had this blank look on his face. I could tell by his expression he hadn't thought about that. I could see the fear building up inside his eyes, and he said, "No, Uncle, it didn't have any type of light." Now, this is just a thought. Was that thing ready to attack my nephew? We know it had its back against the cave wall and was facing in the direction my nephew was coming from. It was in a crouched position, giving the impression it was ready to attack or defend itself. Maybe it thought he was alone, but then picked up our scent or heard us or something. Realizing he wasn't alone, it fled instead. Also, was the red on its face blood? Might it have been eating an animal somewhere deeper inside the cave? Thus, its face was full of blood? I digress. That's one of my favorite things to say, by the way. He said that, not me. Needless to say, my nephew gets uneasy talking about that encounter. I tried getting him to remember as much detail as possible, but to no avail. He just recalls it happened so fast that he doesn't remember the size, color, or if it had fur or not. He said it might be medium-sized compared to a person. Other than that, everything else is a blur. What he does recall is that the red color on its lower face. Also, he never mentioned smelling any type of odor or feeling anything ominous before seeing the creature. I personally think his brain is protecting him from recalling the true form or image of whatever that thing was, kind of like a coping mechanism. Studies show that memory loss can occur in extreme, stressful, or fearful situations. It reminds me of the missing phenomena encounters. In some cases, when the person is found, they experience confusion, disorientation, memory loss, or blurred memories. In other cases, the person can't or doesn't want to remember frightening encounters with unknown creatures. They just say that the creature didn't look right, it looked unearthly or evil. I have been discovering lately some repressed memories of things that were too scary for me to remember from when I was a little girl. Encounters with extraterrestrial beings and all sorts of other creatures that I'm working on extracting. So stay tuned for that, guys. There's going to be a book. FYI, we still go to that cave. Well, minus my nephew. We've gotten twice as far and haven't seen anything yet. I have no idea how deep the cave is, but we're going to keep exploring it. I'll keep you posted. And I have a gut feeling that whatever that thing is, it still lurks deep within that darkness. Maybe there's a network of caves that it roams about in. Will we have a second encounter? Only time will tell. Also, maybe you or one of your viewers has more knowledge regarding caves and cryptids or monsters that dwell within them, or perhaps have had similar encounters. I'd love to know. I included some pictures of the cave. This encounter was pretty long. The second story will have to wait. I don't read these first, guys. I just trust you. So I said 2 from him. There's 1. That's fine. Javier, please send in the second one. I would love to hear it. And if I can somehow extract these pictures, I am going to put them in the video. I'm not really good with that kind of stuff, but I'll work on it. So this one is from our friend Nordland too. And I think I told the shorter version of this, but I'm really not sure, guys. I don't remember, and I usually archive it. So if I've read this one before, I do apologize. Demon Barn in Booger Woods, complete unedited story. Well, I'll talk a little about it. It was kind of weird how I got to the barn the last time I went there. I was out in the college nature center walking the trails. It was a bright sunny day. I got to the back part of the nature center where the college property ends, and on the other side of someone's trees was a farmer's field and then the woods where the barn was located. I do not know why, but I started wondering if I could find the barn from this side of the woods. So I struck out across the field. When I entered the woods, it was dark compared to the sunny fields. I did not walk far until the going got rough. It started getting really thick with bushes. It got to the point where there was only tunnels that the animals went through, so I had to get down on my knees and crawl to continue onward. It was rough going, and I was afraid I was going to get stuck in there. Well, I struggled until I got through this natural maze and came out the other side, right behind the barn, to my amazement. I rested for a while, then got up and walked over to the barn and went into the basement where they used to keep the livestock. I sat down and I had a contact with the spirit who has taken their own life and was stuck there and held hostage by a demon. The spirit said to me that I needed to get out of there before the demon came back. Just then I heard this deep growling voice say, "Who's here in my home?" So I got up and went up the stairs from the basement to the main floor and went outside the barn and started walking out the 2-track that led to the road that went back to town. I decided I would walk the road back to town even though it was a lot further. I didn't even want to think about going through the woods and getting tangled up in that mess again. When I was walking out the old 2-track, when I almost was to the road, I heard someone say, "Hey." I turned, and standing by a tree was an old guy with black eyes in bib overalls. He said to me, "Son, you shouldn't be fooling around by that old barn. It's dangerous and you can get hurt." The guy looked like an old farmer. The trouble was, it didn't feel right. I stared at his black eyes and heard a voice say, "He can see us." I told him that I wouldn't go there anymore and walked away without saying goodbye. I walked up onto the road and started heading towards town. I turned around to see where the old guy was going, and he was gone. I took his words as a warning, and I will never go back there again. I started up the country road toward town, and I could hear all these imp gibber jabbering, and I felt like the whole clan had bum rushed me and was kicking my butt. I felt a heavy weight on me, like the pressure you feel at the bottom of a deep swimming pool. My legs felt like they were going to buckle. I was struggling to make it to the top of the hill. When I got to the top of the hill, I looked up and saw a church steeple, and the cloudy sky broke open and the sun shone through. Then what looked like the Knights Templar wearing this white tunic with the red cross on the front came out of the hole in the sky in a full cavalry charge. I could hear the imps, demons screaming in terror, and these giant knights with their flaming swords were cutting the imps to pieces. The battle didn't last long. I could barely walk. I was so tired when I heard a gruff voice say, "Go home." I said, "I'm so tired I can barely walk." And then I felt strength pouring into my body, and I said, "Thank you, Heavenly Father," and I went home. Nordland, that's quite a story. I know that there's going to be a lot of skepticism about that, but being a lifelong encounter of, as I always say, literally everything, and a huge believer in the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ is my rock star, I totally believe it. Guys, be sure to be respectful in the comments to everybody, because, you know, I don't tolerate bullying, and I don't have to tell you guys that. Let's go on and see if we can find one more. That was really scary. Like, anytime I hear anything about like a black-eyed person or whatever, Okay, so we have Tairai and Nordland. So, all right, Tairai. This one's called Premonition. Good evening. This is a little heavier and short, but it has to do with 2021. Of course, we're in it now and it's coming to an end, but as it is rather dark, it might be good to at least post to those that might have heard of possible things. I received a bunch of mental images of blood and destruction one night in 1993. These images included not only war machines and humans fighting each other, it also included mythological creatures as well, fighting for various sides. I know we are nearing the end of 2021, and I'm not sure if this will come to pass or if this is already happening, but in a different way that was sent to me. The message was overwhelming, and to a degree it has affected some of the choices I've made in my life. While not the primary reason, it's part of the reason I consider joining the military. As we march closer to the end of the year, I pray it does not come to pass. If it does, it would be horrifying. This is the first time I'm talking about the full vision. I've told others an edited version. It's not wise to be open of such thing, as I learned quickly when I was a teenager. I also really couldn't tell who was fighting whom, but it was a battle unlike anything we'd ever seen. As if the realms opened and the very creatures were in the flesh here. As I said, it might not come to pass. Prophecy is not really my thing. I've gotten a few things that have come to pass, but very little. I had a dream the night before Columbine of being under a table in a library and there were screams and blood everywhere. Then the report came out and I felt an eerie deja vu. I didn't come from a military family, but I had the drive to join. I was told not to, as we would go to war. This was earlier in 2001. I told them I know I would have to carry a weapon and go off to war while I was in. I had finished basic and was training for my job when 9/11 happened. Less than 3 years later, I was deployed in a foreign land. For that, I had a gut feeling that told me I was risking, and I charged ahead anyway. Throughout the years from 1993 upwards, the images puzzled me, but as we get closer, it's gotten harder and harder to not worry that it just might come to pass. I'm looking for any input on this, as this community might have others who might know of this. Stay safe, have fun, and blessings for all. Tairai, I wish I had read this earlier. When I look at listener encounters, I always forget that people may be searching for answers and not just giving me an encounter. Do you know what I mean? I have a lot of visions, and I don't know if my visions come true. I close my eyes and I see specific people, and I see sometimes people being murdered, people being beaten, people being buried, people going missing, people being abducted. But the thing is, I never know if it's actually coming to pass because it's always people I don't know. Very few times it's been someone I know or I've been able to warn them about something, like less than a handful. So if anyone else had images like this, maybe Nordland. I mean, I don't know. The Knights Templar and the sky opening up, you know. Guys, let me know if you want to just talk about something without it being a public story. Like if you have experienced something like you've heard in any of the listener encounters and just want to let me know. I am very interested in all the encounters you guys send in. They're very interesting to me. I love knowing that I'm not alone. And I'm sure that's how everybody feels. Why Tairai wants to know if anyone else has experienced it. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. I have some more short ones from Tairai and some more short ones from Nordland. All right, if you have any encounters with the supernatural and or paranormal, please email me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. That way I can get listener encounters part 14 out. Tairai, Nordland, Javier, thank you guys so much. Please send me whatever you have. I'm really bad with getting back to emails, but I'm hoping once I get my home office, which should be by this time next month, I will be doing a lot better. Thank you so much for everyone who sent in your encounters in past videos, who's going to send them in, all of my subscribers. I'm just overwhelmed with your guys' support and love, and I want to send it back to you. Please be sure and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Give this video a big thumbs up for the people who contributed to it. Absolutely. Subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure your notification bell is on. Spread the love by sharing this video. Spread the word by sharing this video. Check out the description box for my Wednesday night Intuitive Oracle live stream reading. The links to Amazon for paperback and Kindle version of my book, Missing the Fae Theory by Gemma Jade. If you want a signed copy, email me first before you make the purchase, please. If you would like a free intuitive oracle reading from me, just hit me up again through email. I do leave a donation link in the description box, but it's optional, so no biggie there. It takes me about a week or two, sometimes a little bit less, to get the reading to you. Also, in the description box, you'll find a link to my interview with Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio, where I talked about my book, Missing the Fae Theory, everything Fae. We talked about the supernatural, the paranormal, some of my psychic experiences. We hung out, we chit-chatted, and we even covered Robot Granny. That interview is very important because it's led me to what I'm starting next month on December 11th, the After Hours show with Willie Townsend, and we're going to be covering paranormal current events. Dave Scott gave me a job on Spaced Out Radio, and it's going to be freaking awesome. I hope to see all of you guys there. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. It can make you feel so good. More importantly, most importantly, just as importantly, be kind to yourselves. Always go in grace. Have your best day. Have your best night. Thank you so much for watching, for all of your support, and I will see you next time.